JL Cauvin is back, and he's one of my favorite people to talk to, and he legitimately is one of my favorite podcasters. But as I told him, I haven't been able to listen to the last couple Rain on Your Parades, and I'm really looking forward to, because you're very good at marketing and putting a title that makes me want to listen. In this case, A Visit from Republican Jesus is the name of one episode. Conservative Comedy is the name of another one, and Friends Haters, which I'm interested in knowing more about. I don't get that one.
It's a more lighter one, because I'd watched over the last 6 months
show Friends,
all 10 episodes and 10 seasons of Friends, and I really liked it. And I wanted to address the people who are like, I can't believe people thought this was funny.
The thing I like about your show, and welcome back to mine, is I always love when you're here, obviously, is people, the best compliment I get from a listener is when they say, I looked at the guest and the subject and I didn't think I'd like it, but I really enjoyed it. You do that with me on any number of subjects. I always talk about, not so interested in listening to a conversation about music or culture or TV, specifically TV, film and stuff. You make it so funny that you keep me in it. And so I don't want to hear anybody talk about the show Friends unless it's you, because I guarantee I'll love it. So welcome back. I do want to get right to one of those episodes that I think, because we were talking about it, even though I said I didn't listen to it, A Visit from Republican Jesus. The show episode description, I just lost it, so you're going to have to tell me.
Basically, the episode, it was just an idea. I had wanted to do a sketch video.
Christian, get ready to have your woke Christianity rained on by Republican Jesus Christ. I'm already laughing. Let's go.
And it's a fun thing. Like when I went to see Bruce Springsteen in Vegas, actually, that was what I did one of the nights in Vegas in March. I then had my girlfriend buy a bunch of props on Amazon so I could dress up as Steve Van Sant and do an episode about Bruce Springsteen dressed as Steve Van Sant. The podcast is, because of the video component in general, I'm giving you generally speaking, yes, it's still me talking and making points and jokes, but I'm trying to once in a while embrace the video aspect of it, so you can maybe draw in new attention and new whatever. So I was going to do a sketch.
I don't care what your strategy is. The fact that you dress up in costumes, always, if I see an image that you shared on Twitter or whatever of you in a wig, and it's so committed, and it's so good. I love that you're so committed. I could never do that. I would feel too self-conscious.
I thank you for saying that, because that's what I said to Mike, my producer. I said, I would love it if the show even just had 10,000 listeners. In other words, that the ad money from it or whatever would be enough to be like, okay, this is what I do between Patreon and ad money. Like I can just make ends meet off of this, because then I could just keep diving back in and recommitting, because it is fun. And comedy is not a place for shame, I guess is sort of word. I'm not saying do something tasteless just cause, but yeah, it is weird dressing up in this stuff. And then you just lean into it, and it makes the point is to make other people laugh and enjoy it.
I think the risk, honestly, is an adult celebrity impersonator or comedian doing impersonations who is then going to dress up. The risk is you've committed the outfit and your impression isn't good enough, or your impression's good, but you're not funny enough. That's never the concern with you. And you know that, which is why you're probably like, if I did it, I'd be like, oh, I can't believe I bought this wig and no one's laughing.
For Republican Jesus, though,
in Vegas in full Trump outfit, I heard you say it was the best ever.
Yeah.
And I was dying. We all were. It was absolutely hilarious. You embody him, even if you're just listening to a podcast, but when you see it, your face, your movements, it was great. So the fact is, you're the best at it.
Thank you. Republican Jesus was a sketch I'd written, and I figured this will be easier and cheaper to just do a podcast episode and let Mike film it, cut up some clips, whatnot.
Oh, okay.
So it was originally going to be, I thought, what if I turned Jesus into a modern day alpha bro podcaster? One of the lines in the episode was, are you an apostle or a pussy? Which is obviously not something Jesus would say, but it is the kind of, I wouldn't even say Rogan, to be honest. There's a lot of personalities now to the right and to the absurd of Joe Rogan who are gaining followings and things. And So I said, why don't we just film this? So I ordered like a Jesus costume and a wig, and basically just made him, I start the episode out talking like in some sort of vague Borat-esque Middle Eastern non-existent accent, and then just flip it and say, I'm just kidding. I'm obviously from Texas. And just trashing. Basically, one of the lines is like, Jesus is a Jewish guy. We're known for our humor. A lot of what I say in the Bible is sarcasm that the woke Christians aren't picking up on. About how's it going for the meek? Are the poor really blessed? Do the poor look blessed? I don't think so. So it's just reflecting the hypocrisy and absurdity of what many modern American Christians hold themselves as. And I know there's plenty of people with plenty of reasons not to like religion in general and specific religions also, like Catholicism. But there is much like Trump, there is if it wasn't so scary, it's farce at this point. It's satire. So many of the people who claim to be Christians, it's really ridiculous. And after this show, I should put you in contact with a guy who co-produced this documentary called, is it God and Country? Rob Reiner is one of the producers of it. Uh-huh. It's this great documentary, and I know one of the guys who produced it, and I'm sure maybe he'd be happy to come on. But in terms of Christian nationalism in this country,
if I could just speak,
permission to speak on your podcast, granted.
When you say, "Would you an apostle or a pussy?" What I'm hearing and what I see a lot in this new American brand of Christianity, Christian nationalism, it's often referred to, but just this, what you were talking about is that the whole cruelty is the point thing, that you're a Christian and you're somehow making an argument that to be mean and to be cruel and to frankly be unforgiving, to celebrate in other people's pain is Christianity, or what was. I don't even know that they always make the argument. Christian Dumez writes about this really obviously in a scholarly journalistic way, but am I on to anything here?
Yeah, and not to keep spouting the things I've read and seen, but Tim Alberta, a writer for The Atlantic,
I like him most of the time.
He came out with a book late last year called The Power, the Kingdom, and the Glory, which is, he comes from the evangelical church. And it's about the sort of rightward turn and the division in the evangelical church, which the same way I've grown to really respect a Mitt Romney as an example, and the lines became very clear with the rise of Trump, which Republicans were at least policy different, but principled people. And the vast majority seem to not be that. But that when you see a guy like Mitt Romney, I go, I don't have to agree with his choices on policy, but I think that is somebody who is a believer in certain things and has certain principles that he believes in. And the foundational ones.
He's a pretty strict practicing Mormon. I could point to hypocrisies even in the Mormon religion that he quantified.
And he comes from his dad. I'm surprised Mitt Romney is even a Republican at this point, given how liberal and how impressive his father was at a similarly tumultuous time in American history. And he basically could have been a presidential candidate, but sadly he came out against the Vietnam War and pro-civil rights, and there went his political career. So this book, Kingdom, Power, and Glory, there are certain people like David French, who's a conservative lawyer, who's a columnist for the New York Times. These are people who you might not agree with them on how they practice their lives or what they think is right and wrong, but they haven't changed that. And you start to see that these are principled people that you can disagree with, and they are now becoming ostracized within both their church and obviously their political party. And I just think, like what you said, I think in the book, there's a lot of talk about strength and power. And Jesus was not about earthly strength and earthly power and like dominating and winning. It's about doing for your fellow man. It's about the meek shall inherit the earth, which I may mock in the podcast. There's nothing Republican about there's nothing modern GOP Republican Christian about Jesus. That's just whether as a spiritual matter or as just a text.
Even if you were to say anything you might say some of the culture war issues, specifically abortion or even LGBT gay stuff. But I guess it feels plenty of people make the argument that Jesus said nothing about abortion, and we all know that abortion was introduced as a divisive wedge issue to help Republicans win, and the Reagan Revolution and the history of that. We don't necessarily all know that. But my point I'm trying to make is it feels like people might go to church or refer to themselves as a Christian, but the thing that they really care in terms of what their politicians do is on those culture war issues, just those couple of things. And I guess my question is, as someone who tries to be a practicing Buddhist, I'm not even remotely close. I wouldn't call myself that, but I'm getting closer, or have a set of principles and philosophy. I do try to practice it every day. You are really good about that. You are a true Catholic in every sense but the pedophile sense. And so you get that. But I feel like a lot of these people aren't principled in their Christianity, because the core tenets of things like forgiveness and generosity and acceptance are easily understandably played out in public policy, specifically with things like immigration and obviously public health, insurance, things like that, and the culture war issues. What do you think about the fact that they just don't seem to have a practicing principle or philosophy outside of those core culture war issues? Is that arriving at a good question?
Yes. I think what the modern Republican Christian wants is power, but with a better brand. And Jesus is a very good brand. Being Christian in the truest sense is generally thought of as somebody who is a good person, if you will, to do the Christian thing. And as far as being generous and looking after those less fortunate. So that's a good brand to be associated with. Nobody wants to say I'm a power hungry scumbag. That's not something. It's the same way you can have people who are deeply racist, but they even know, excuse me, don't call me racist. I've talked to people who I have begun to view as anti-Semitic. And I'm not just saying, I'm not getting into the whole guy. I'm talking like legit, not because you protest or you side with what I'm talking, where you start to learn things. But if I ever asked the person, this is veering into this, what? No, because we want to be able to think what we want, but we still are also aware on a level of what the bad labels are. And when I look at the Republican Party, it is the only way I can say it is it's satire at this point to call themselves Christian. They want power. And culture wars are a place to fight and feel like winners. That's why they like Trump, because they felt like they could win with Trump, which, of course, taken to its extreme. And this is what the book was saying also. Christianity is about doing good and preparing yourself for the kingdom of God, not to be a dominant winner and crush your opponents and have no forgiveness and not help the less fortunate. But they want to win. They want earthly wins. I know not to put this in too much of a sound like a pastor, but they want to win on earth, but they want to still be, but I'm on team Jesus, which is a good, holy, pure team. Nothing I'm doing is really in line with that team, but we've rebranded the team now. It now means Trump. It now means hating the left. It now means hardline policies that are unforgiving, and it's if it wasn't so sad, and scary, it's a joke.
What other observations, points, or jokes did you make during that episode about Republican Jesus?
Said obviously there was one point where I was like, it pains me to see what's happening in Israel, because obviously I'm
Mike Pence.
Oh, sorry. No, I can't do the full. I was really in the beard really helps with the character.
This is Jesus. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it was Jesus.
It's fine. Mike Pence influence. It would make sense.
Yeah. No, I was basically like, in Israel, I'm a Jew, so I got to be down with my Israeli brothers and sisters. But it's real sad what's happening. I feel for the Gaza. I'm just kidding. Israel all the way, brother. Things like that, where you set up like, oh, is Jesus going to love everybody? Oh, no, Republican Jesus clearly picks sides. So it's just the whole idea of loving the wealthy. And it's like, how else am I going to show somebody that they are blessed if I'm not going to give them money? You give money to charity, you're basically being, why don't you ask Jesus for a gift receipt when he bestows gifts upon you? Because here I am giving you riches and you're writing out checks to charities. Oh, I'm sorry. Next time I'll just give it to somebody who wants to keep the blessings of Christ. Like that kind of a vibe where it's like,
that's the type of Christianity, which is also what's it called? The profit-driven, donation-driven
prosperity gospel.
Prosperity gospel. That was escaping me. That's obviously been popular in America and around the world.
Yeah, Joel Osteen was Republican Jesus' number 2 Christian.
Oh, really? Who was number 1?
Trump.
Oh, a lot more to say about that. I guess my question is, what are your thoughts about how Trump has changed that? Because we were obviously headed in that trajectory, but somehow he came in. I think a lot about how a pivot point or a way to understand what happened in the Republican Party is, I guess John McCain was a loser for losing to a black guy. And he was more moderate than, to be fair, than some other Republicans. He certainly seemed extreme to me, obviously, with Sarah Palin and during the primaries. But when Donald Trump said he didn't like John McCain and I didn't like people that got captured and literally made fun of a number of times his actual physical handicap, I feel like that is a really important point or thing that happened that helps understand when the Republican Party changed to that type of cruelty. Like, he's unassailable, except for the far left who doesn't like it that you're napalming civilians. But most Americans saw John McCain that way. Donald Trump ate him up, yum, yum. And everybody, not everybody, but a lot of the Republican Party followed along with him. And I feel like that's a real crucible moment there. That is what you're saying about the changeover into cruelty, even against a celebrated veteran, which used to be unassailable in America.
And this is, once again, the love of veterans. I think exposes, what the Republican Party has become, because let's not forget, it was totally okay to attack veteran Jon Carroll. That was maybe almost an unintentional trial balloon for Trump attacking a Republican veteran. Because in 2004, it was perfectly acceptable to attack a decorated war hero who was a Democrat, because there was something about being a Democrat that overshadowed his truly hard-earned military accomplishments. The Democrat label made it okay to attack him. Trump elevated it to, if you're not me, I can attack you. And the Republicans went with it. That's still, to me, the most shocking thing of that campaign, because I, at that point, was not taking Trump seriously, but I was enjoying seeing him wreck the carcass of the Republican Party in the debates. And when he did that, or in the campaigning, and when he did that, I thought, oh, well, I guess, I don't like the Republican Party, but one thing I know they won't stand for is mockery of their veterans. And they did. They did it. I had a track on Fireside Craps, The Deuce, my album that came out in 2020, which was Donald Trump taking a dump on the ashes of John McCain, which doesn't feel like something, it feels like something he actually might do at this point. But they want to win. They don't.
The P-tape was so believable. It felt like absolutely he would have done that.
When people say, oh, remember I still get this from time to time. Oh, you mean like the Russian hoax? Okay, let's just assume the Russian file, the Christopher Steele dossier was really a bunch of misinformation from Russia. Donald Trump did everything you would expect someone who had done shady shit with Russia to do. Like, it's like an odd thing where people act like, it's the same way I feel about his trial, where I referred to him, quoted in the New York Times this week, by the way, as the white OJ, where I go, I think his people know he's guilty and don't care. They don't think this rises to a level of importance. And on the OJ front, they think he's been done wrong by losing an election.
Right.
And that is the white MAGA voters' equivalent of decades of criminal justice, oppression, and abuse. So yeah, fuck you. I hope OJ goes free because of decades. And they've never understood that. Michael Brown was another example of this. George Floyd, where they immediately they separate so quickly from the emotional trauma of years in these communities and cut it to one riot or one CVS burned and go, it's totally illegitimate. Do you see what they're doing? Do you see what they're doing? And yet when Trump lost an election fairly, they know they don't want to believe it, but when he lost an election, that was like some unconscionable oppression worthy of a civil war to the MAGA voter. And it's like this that is the legacy of Trump. I think it's this idea of I want to, and this brings in the sort of Christian idea, the Jesus idea of I want to be all powerful like Christ, like God. I also want to suffer like Jesus. I want to be both martyr and all powerful winner at the same time. And that's what Trump does. It's I'll be a dictator on day one, but nobody's ever been treated so badly as me. His supporters, we lost an election. What do you mean we lost an election? This is the worst thing that's ever happened in the country because we had to have a black president, which was already too much. And now you're telling me we can't have our preferred white president back? This isn't even a country anymore. It is like it's bordering on mental illness, the sort of self-pity and also belief in like your singular greatness. It's a sick group of fucking people. That's the thing we are dealing now with a sort of mass delusion. And it's scary because they think that they're a sort of legitimate, honorable political movement. There is nothing Trump can do to sway them of that.
You must have a strong opinion on what happens after Donald Trump dies or more likely loses again. Let's go with loses again real quick. And let's not spend a lot of time on this one.
Sure. My video, the only video I will do after 2025 will be Donald Trump literally in hell saying, boy, oh, heaven is hot. I never thought heaven would be so hot. I like the hot. I live in Florida. We like the hot weather, but this is wow. It's almost sweaty and I should have put on shorts because that's the delusion to the max. Like being in hell, being one of the worst people on earth and thinking you're in heaven and being able to trick yourself that you're in heaven. That's the only video I want to do after 2024 with Trump. I want to be done with it, but I will save that one. That's chambered for when he passes away.
It's very funny, and I look forward to it, and I hope that's what happens. But just to be clear, my question is what happens to the movement and the ideology that we've been talking about, that they've become this cruel, mean, and what did you call sick and twisted? What was the
I think it's like I think it's bordering on mental illness, honestly.
How so?
I can collect because it's like this combo. I don't know if it's chemically altered these people, but this combo of self-pity, but also all like super powerful, we're the best. And it combines into this force that doesn't allow them to see facts as far as Trump is concerned. And they've convinced him he's the emperor's new clothes, but on a much different scale. I think when he loses, to answer your question, I think the funny thing is there's probably some people like a JD Vance, credentialed people who can present well, like whether you like JD Vance or not. I think he's obviously somebody to be reckoned with in the future of the Republican Party.
Oh, there's plenty of them. What's his name? Cotton.
Tom Cotton. He's a little too much of a pencil neck. I think JD Vance literally, like he's too much of a geeky appearance. I think JD Vance is
I agree.
The guy I would look to as somebody who he could post-Trump. He may try to make a slight pivot to like a center Republican as far as the hard.
I think it's a good top choice. I was just trying to add. I was thinking of some others, but yeah, he also has that face. JD Vance has that very Kansas City Chiefs kicker face, very Gilead commander look.
Yeah, of Vance. But I think what I think these fucking people don't realize is that you look at Trump. Oh, he's going to be 78 when he loses. If he loses, he's going to be 78. And these people are all going, I'm going to get his endorsement. Donald Trump will not let go of this throne until he is dead or literally incapacitated. I think he will run. I honestly think he will run again in 2028 if he is like physically able to, because he is still going to be able to get 25%. And they'll do the same thing, which is 19 people will run and go, I'm the heir apparent. And he will, and maybe enough people will be fed up with him and he will have to settle for being the kingmaker and saying, I send my 20% to Vance. But
the larger question and concern is, does the movement that he created, the ideology that he created, continue? Will it be as easy to make people believe a thing happened that did not happen? Do we continue to be on different planets just because of the way media works and who we listen to? Because I often think about, I was talking with my pop about this morning, in talking about the school board meeting, if we lose, and I think we're probably going to, I'm very scared. I hope I'm wrong on tomorrow's show, but it'll be because the same reason people sacked the Capitol, because those people truly believed that the steal, that stop the steal, they truly believe that. In my town, these people truly believe trans girls are going to come in and take out their penises. They truly believe it. And so the point being, will that continue? Because that's a very Trumpian quality. You could just make something up like a magician, and it didn't happen, but the people will believe it. And I guess it could be anybody saying it. Who's the most influential talker on the right, from Rogan to Tucker Carlson to whoever? Trump lost a lot, but
I think I said this somewhere and I forget. Oh, I said it to the New York Times guy, but you didn't put it in the article. I said, we have stage 4 Trump in this country. It is in our bone marrow now. And even though I would argue that Donald Trump is the single most effective and inspiring, I don't mean that word in a good way,
motivating
of that message. Yeah. But that message will remain. I think it may not be as powerful without his megaphone, but his megaphone isn't going away, I don't think, in the next 1 to 3 years, unless he literally goes to jail.
I think I disagree with that. I think you probably are right, but I'm always this weird optimist. But I do think there's some merit to the argument that his life story and the whole Apprentice thing and the whole thing he created about himself by literally calling publicists and saying that he was not him. This is John. What is his name?
John. Hello, this is John Barron, and I just wanted to let you know that Donald Trump is a magnificent lover. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye. Yeah, I think that whole persona, I think it matters to make people believe things that are very hard to believe. And let me be even more like specific. People won't believe J.D. Vance when he says a lot of things. And more importantly, J.D. Vance or anyone else won't even think to say these things. Like, I'm more consequential to Black Americans than the man who freed the slaves. That's a little bit of an overstatement of Lincoln, but he said that about Lincoln. I've done more for Black people than Lincoln. I don't see anybody else doing that or saying that. Vivek has tried, but there's no.
Right. I was going to say, I figured you'd bring him up because he is the one.
People they like it. It's entertaining. They know it brings liberal tears and enrages us. But
he's the Trump permissible ethnic sidekick that MAGA wants,
exactly.
But they'll never accept him as a leader.
Exactly. Well said. Yeah.
Permissible ethnic sidekick is also the name of my next special.
I bet.
I think there, and that is, I think, what people are trying to figure out behind the scenes. But if you look at it, the only person, I've said this for a little while, I've been turning into a joke. The only person who on earth right now, the only American who I think could have challenged Donald Trump legitimately for the nomination is Vince McMahon, the former WWE chairman. And I say that because Vince McMahon, first of all, he has a sex scandal now, so that apparently is probably good news for him.
I don't agree with that. I think that only works too for Donald Trump.
No, and the reason, and I'm not just trying to grasp at straws, and it is a little bit of a joke, obviously, what I'm saying, but I really did think Vince McMahon has a built-in constituency that's, cousins to the MMA crowd,
sure,
the WWE. He is a legitimate billionaire.
The sex scandal could be spun as he's being victimized. And obviously there's more tolerance for a sex scandal. There used to be none on either side, it would seem. Continue.
And he is somebody with a lot of actual TV charisma, like Trump. And he is a stronger, literally, now he's gotten frail. But I'm saying 5 years ago, if Vince McMahon put on a suit and was still buff and wanted to, I think he could have challenged him. There are no real conservatives out there with. This is a shallow party. This is a party of, and they are not going. They wanted a star. They were jealous of Obama for being a rock star president, to put it in pithy terms, a celebrity. They got their own celebrity president who fed all their prejudices and all their desires. And I don't know that guy, that replacement for Trump is out there. So the best news is that post-Trump, I don't think it can be sustained with the same vigor, but it can be sustained I think, to a smaller extent and a damaging extent.
You made me change my mind just now. I feel, and I don't feel great about it, because what I was thinking was JD Vance can't do that. But Vince McMahon argument, who else could do that? The guy who runs MMA. Who else could beat Trump? Joe Rogan. Any number of celebrities who have made a lot of money, who have established themselves as famous, who are cocksmen, if you will. There are a lot of women like them. That's all you have to be. If you're a millionaire or billionaire and you're famous and you're very successful and women love you, that's all you have to be. Maybe that's what you've just made me think. So I took your Vince McMahon argument, and if you're The Rock, if you're big, strong, attractive billionaire, and
you notice The Rock declined to, if he's thinking a long game, he declined to endorse Joe Biden. Yep. Now you can make an argument he's doing that from a business standpoint, but if he's thinking politics as the next Arnold Schwarzenegger thing to conquer,
and just the appearance on Fox News is
right.
Count. Yeah.
No, and
so I think
because Rogan's short, I don't think Rogan could. Because if we're going on shallow, The Rock is 6'3", 6'4". Joe Rogan is 5'7".
I'm switching back and forth on this argument because I just feel like even if it's any of these guys that we're talking about, it's hard to keep saying an audacious lie every day over and over all day long. I think these guys that we're talking about, it would get old for them. And I'm not sure that if you don't do that, you don't win. If you're not Goebbels, if you're not following the strategy of repetitive lies, and Trump just gets more and more extreme with his lies, and he says them the same shit, as you know better than anybody, over and over. So what do you think of now that I'm arguing, I think, solely with myself?
I think, and that's the thing, if I would say be scared if all of a sudden you look and Tucker Carlson is on like HGH and getting like kind of buff, because that's somebody with the media charisma and the built-in audience.
Outrageous things over and over. Yeah.
So buff Tucker Carlson is the only person who could be the heir apparent to Trump right now, I think. But that figure may emerge later. Maybe it'll be fucking Jake or Logan Paul. And I know that sounds crazy now.
Nothing sounds
but these
crazy.
Are media savvy. These are media savvy entertainers, entrepreneurs. In the new media, what Jake and Logan Paul have done is incredibly impressive. They've built an empire starting as YouTube teens, and now they're in sports entertainment. They're in sports. They have sports drinks. Like, this is the kind of thing and Logan Paul, I think, is the less offensive of the two Paul brothers. But hey, when Logan Paul's 50 and worth $1 billion and shaves his beard and walks in a suit and has some ideas about some libertarian policies and some lessons, he's a wrestler. He's like a WWE guy. And the other one is boxing. The younger one is boxing.
That's the same thing. The point is that ingredient is of this archetype is ever present. You're picking some great picks. I'd love to know what listeners think, and we'll do this at the Hangout, about this discussion. I bet you they mostly agree, but I'm wondering if they have suggestions of who that celebrity, super masculine, wealthy guy would be, and can he lie over and over in a way that Trump can and get away with it? That's the question. It leads us into.
Can I give you one more? Can I give you one? But I don't think he's a big enough scumbag
anymore.
Vince Vaughn is a guy who, and I know that because I don't think he has political ambitions, it doesn't make sense. But a guy like Vince Vaughn, tall, some presence, charisma.
Yeah.
He's just not, I don't think he's a guy who would get out there and lie. Like, it's about these different ingredients, but then you just have to find that one guy.
How about Greg Gutfeld? I know he doesn't fit because he's too small. I used to be on his show all the time, and he actually lives in a shoe. But it brings us into the conservative comedy episode of your podcast, because he, by pretty much every metric you can measure on television, is doing better than the most well-respected of late night hosts. And Grand Fox News has a huge viewership, but bottom line is he's keeping them watching with his brand of conservative comedy. And I actually used to really think he was very funny. I don't really laugh now, but I see what he's doing. I get what he's doing. Your thoughts on him, and more importantly, that episode of your
conservative comedy. That the two big takeaways on that one were really, I'm annoyed now that comedy seems to be becoming like faith, like patriotism, one of these things that the average person starts to affiliate with right-wing people. Like comedy, the left, they want to censor you. They want to only make fun of Trump. They're woke. They're not going there. They want to challenge you. They don't like it when you go there. And that's becoming this sort of, I feel like it's becoming a little bit of a cliche for the average person, which is, oh, conservative comedians are the ones embracing free speech and like going for it. If you ask somebody, what was the politics of the roast of Tom Brady? I would say there were none. But a lot of people would get like, roasts are back, the wokes have lost. And the woke, it means like progressives or left-wing people. And I would say there was no politics. It was just good comedy. There were a lot of good jokes and moving on. But so I resent that because it hurts somebody like me who's perceived as some left-wing guy, whereas my comedy is, and the left is not excused entirely from this because I get plenty of complaints when I do a joke that isn't Trump is with Jeff Epstein. And then I make one light joke about Joe Biden and they're like, that's not nice. So I'm not saying that problem doesn't exist, but it's become this sort of thing where real comedy is aggressive, hateful shit from the right because they're not afraid to hurt feelings. That's now real comedy. And anything other than that is just some woke nonsense pandering. So that was the first thing. But the second thing, and why Gutfeld was one of the people on the front of the thumbnail, was when I watch Gutfeld sometimes, it's more of the way I watch specials. Sometimes it's for commentary and information than it is for entertainment.
Yeah.
What's funny is that until Kristi Noem showed up, who became this gift of, hey, we can make fun of a Republican. We can earn our bipartisan comedy points by dumping on her for an episode. But it usually is just a nonstop shitting on Democrats and Biden. And I'm always wondering, like the comics who go on there, I said, I did Comics Unleashed, which is not the pinnacle of artistic comedy. But at least I wasn't also doing it on a network that was like a right-wing propaganda factory. To go on Gutfeld, as it is currently constituted, you have to both check your comedy freedom a little bit and stick to the line. Because, of course, it's not censorship or woke when you adhere only to right-wing talking points. That's not censorship. That's not cutting out one side. That's just good comedy. It's when you're left-wing that you ignore the right. That's the problem. That's when you've gone woke. But ignoring the left and doing only right-wing approved audience bullshit, that still gets to be real comedy, even though it's at best an equal ignoring of the other side and the other opportunities for jokes. But I said going on that show is like a double whammy where it's like, you can check your integrity as a comedian and your integrity as a human, but doing both, I said, it's if Goebbels, you brought him up earlier. That's what I said in the episode. I said, it's like if Goebbels had a talk show, a comedy show in 1933, there'd be comics going, we were cool in high school. What do you want me to say? He's an all right guy. How could I know where things were headed? And that's what it feels like. Doing comedy on Fox News, to me, is somehow the objective viewpoint there is this is Fox News. You're doing comedy on Fox News. Does the comedian in you not see some kind of issue with that in terms of like, I've seen good comedians do mediocre jokes for audiences on Fox News. And I go, okay, so you're selling out your artistic integrity for the joys of entertaining a propaganda network. Like, so that was, the two gists of the episode, but please go listen to it anyway.
Love it. Love all of it. Have a lot to say about that. I'm just wondering how interesting it is for listeners more than your thoughts on a couple of other things that I wanted to talk with you about. So go listen to that episode about conservative comedy. It matters a lot because it's so influential, comedy and entertainment and any form of culture, really, to politics. I guess it's all overlapping now. But I wanted to ask you about Trump's hush money case and just give you my quick thought on the coverage of it. Michael Cohen apparently has not been doing great, according to legal analysts, once he was under examination by Trump's defense, and they seem to be taking him apart. And if you listen to some of the expert pundits, you're hearing a lot of that. But the analysis that I heard that resonates more with me, that is in this courtroom with this case, and the context matters. Somebody talked about Sammy the Bull. He murdered 19 people, but he was the star witness to convict whatever mafia don was on trial. I forget. But you know about this. You're a lawyer. You're a legal expert. You have a much more educated.
Please strike that one from the record. Legal expert.
You're not a criminal law expert. You're a very thoughtful guy. I'd rather hear your take on many things than experts, quote experts. Anyway, my point is, no one's surprised that Michael Cohen's a dirtbag who lies and steals money. The case they're trying to make is that corroborating what he said. They've got a whole bunch of receipts for that. This jury knows, they know even before they walked in that jury room, that to be especially in New York, to be a member of the Trump organization, you had to prove yourself by stealing from a child with cancer. Nobody is good. No one's shocked in that jury that Michael Cohen's a dirtbag. And you can take a dirtbag. If you could take a guy who murdered 19 people, what you're trying to do with that person is prove that the guy who's on trial is guilty. Those are my very amateur thoughts. And finally, the TV analysis gets a little sensationalized, and then the clips get taken out, and it's like that one criticism, and you know how that goes in the zeitgeist as well as anybody. So I just feel like sometimes their analysis is a little hyperbolic to get ratings and viewers and get us scared. What do you think?
I think the problem with the Sammy the Bull, John Gotti comparison, the only problem there is Donald Trump is basically a financial mob boss. He basically is. That's the way he operates. Those are the people he's idolized in terms of how they operated. But he is a former president, and all you need is one juror to give him that benefit of the doubt. I'm not thinking of him as a mob boss, and I'm thinking, wow, this guy who worked for him was a scumbag. And most people will be like, they're all scumbags. But I think all you need is one person to be like, I don't think of him as a Sammy the Bull, John Gotti relationship. I think of this as more like a Sammy the Bull and a tough police captain relationship, where this person has and that's what Trump has done for his whole presidency and post-presidency, is I cloak myself in the presidency. So therefore, the things that I've done that are bad, that's actually people just coming at me because I'm a great president. Because, see, I'm a president. So that's like a shield. He uses it as a preemptive shield for any legitimate attack on him. I hope they convict. I'd love to see that. From what I've heard, I think, like you said, nobody is it's not like Michael Cohen came in there as Sister Michelle Murphy, and they're like, this nun was a thief. He's a shady character. And I think when people say things like, and he basically admitted on the stand that he said he hopes Trump goes to jail. It's like, what's he going to say? No? If he said no, that's what you don't believe.
Right.
The whole point is to come off truthful. And when you know their story, it's, oh yeah, this guy has reason to hate him. But does that mean he's lying? That's the question. That's what the prosecutors have to get out and get the jury to realize that just because you hate, just like when somebody says, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean somebody's not after you. And with Michael Cohen, it's, he's not a good guy. That's what I twisted in my videos about the trial, where Trump is going, I hired this guy. That's how you know he's not trustworthy.
Right.
It's like some sort of, I don't know if it's a catch-22, but it's like this, like Trump would want to have it both ways. Be like, I'm a good guy. I hire scumbags to do scumbag work. How can you trust this guy? The Groucho Marx line, I would never be a member of a club that would have me as a member. That's the Trump organization. It's like, you can't trust this guy. He works for me. And somehow that may fucking work. Like that sort of ironic craziness, I think, has worked wonders on the Trump base. And I just hope it doesn't work on this jury. And I don't think, unfortunately, I think Alvin Bragg was perfectly right to bring this case. But the same token, I think it could lose or win legitimately. I don't think it requires some sleeper cell of MAGA people to find an acquittal. And it also doesn't take the board of directors at MSNBC to convict. It's like it's a close case and it comes down to credibility. I think and I know court is different than public opinion, but the fact that people will look at this and like surrogates and stuff on news, you almost want to go off the record and just go, oh, he's guilty. Like the OJ thing. I get why you're making the legal arguments in court as to why.
I'm kind of thinking about exactly what you're saying right now. Go ahead.
In other words, you can make the legal arguments, and that's where the case will be decided. But when people act like he's actually innocent of this, I think there's a question of, did Donald Trump ever say to Michael Cohen, yes, this is reimbursement for, he might not have. What Michael Cohen can't say to the jury, but would probably be the truth, is I worked for Mr. Trump for many years. We had a shorthand, which was basically he would look at me and say, take care of this. And I knew what that meant. And if we're being honest, we're like, yes, this piece of shit knows that his henchman knows what he wants after decades of being a henchman. And so he doesn't have to go, Michael Cohen, excuse me, please make sure that the porn star doesn't talk because I want to be president. That's not how the real world works. And that's the sort of standard we're holding. The truth. And so if Michael Cohen says, yes, he explicitly said, if I'm being honest with you, that's a reason for me to go, now I'm thinking maybe he didn't explicitly say that, because the thing I would believe, but maybe not the average juror, the thing I would believe is, so he didn't actually say, do this. No, Mr. Trump said, take care of this, Michael. This election is a big deal. And that would be enough for me to go, I know what he meant, and I believe him. I believe that this is their version of a smoking gun. But what Michael Cohen has to present, maybe truthfully, maybe lying, I'm not sure, is, yes, he said to me, take care of this for the elect. Some phone call, some critical phone call that he's providing as here is the signed confession. And it's, let's be realistic. Donald Trump did this shit. What are we doing? He did it. Like, we all know, like, he did it. He did it. This is not a coincidence. And it's like he's going, I've specifically put legal fees, and they want to prosecute me for legal fees. Oh, you wrote legal fees. Oh, I'm sorry. Now I guess we can't do anything, because in the Trump ledger, he wrote legal fees, which means no crime. You know, I had 6 people murdered, but I wrote dry cleaning in my ledger, so you know it's dry cleaning.
But that's exactly what mafia does. They do murder people, and they do use different language when they
paint houses. The Irishman, I hear you paint houses, meant he was a hitman.
Sure. But like they're on the phone, they're being listened to, so they have to make sure they're not admitting to crimes because they're being tapped. Right. That's enough smart people who have covered and studied mafia know Trump does exactly. That's where he learned it from.
Right. Donald Trump, why don't you ever email or text? It's 2024. Why don't you ever email or text? Those are like that is indicative of a criminal mindset. Now you can't hold.
To be clear, he built buildings using mafia-controlled cement. He worked specifically with them. It's well documented. And so, of course, he learned how to communicate from them and why they're successful. You make a great analysis of the case, better than anything I've seen, because, if anything, the impressions, you don't see that from Andrew Weissman. So I think that this trial, what?
Yeah, I think it's, you either suspend your common sense. And if I were giving a closing statement in this, you don't want to lean too hard on use your common sense, because that makes it sound like you don't have a lot of real evidence. But I think just it should be mentioned, some euphemism for common sense. Like, you have to believe, like the idea that all these steps were taken, all these things were done, the timing of when it was done. And if you don't, it's almost like it's in a weird way, like kind of circumstantial, because you're never going to get Trump to specifically say, like I said, take this money to reimburse yourself for paying off the porn star because I was in an election year. You're never going to get that. So the question you have to ask a jury is, a criminal is not going to talk like that. Somebody who committed this crime is not going to speak like that when they're already demonstrating how much they want to obscure the direct line of this payment. They're already showing you they don't want you to know what this is. So they're certainly not going to say it in a direct way, and certainly not to an employee of 15 or 20 years who knows exactly what his boss wants and how he wants it. But if you use your common sense and you look at when it was done, who did it for, how he paid him back. There is only one conclusion. And if you require every criminal to specifically say a well-worded, specific confession to convict them of the crime, use your comment, you look at the evidence. It's laid out there for you. If I give you all the ingredients for a cake, but I don't say this is a cake, you're still going to know what it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well done. Well said. No, perfect. And I appreciate the metaphor, analogy.
I like desserts.
JL Cauvin, you've done it again here. You're doing it all the time in Rain on your parade. And I so appreciate your analysis. You really are one of the best, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And can I just mention, other than Rain on Your Parade, just to check out jlcomedy.com, the calendar. I got live shows both as me and also some big live shows as Trump, including June 13th at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut.
If you're in or around anywhere near Mohegan Sun, go see JL, jlcomedy.com. And
it was if I may, it was the stand-up pod jam that I think I had such a good time. And I think Jay, my co-host for that, immediately, like a cartoon character, saw how good it was. And he blinked and those dollar signs came up in his eyeballs. So he wanted to do live shows. And I was like, hell yeah. So it was like the pod jam that kind of inspired us to try to put together, start building a little fall, like summer fall tour.
What's called Trump live shows. I've always wanted you to do that. So I think it's great. I'm glad that Pod Jam encouraged you to do it. Thank you to everybody who came and to everybody who laughed. You did an amazing job there. And that's great. I'm glad you're doing those. And people, there's very few things I argue go out and pay to watch this, but that was so damn funny. I was so happy. I was so relieved how that day.
And it'll be a different show. You know what I mean? It'll be like, it's not like we repeat. It's not the Martin Short, Steve Martin thing where it's like a set show.
No,
it will be, it's like Fish, but good. You'll just get the unique experience.
It's just like the band Fish.
Whoa, Trump's jamming for 38 minutes. Go. Yeah, but Pod Jam was super awesome, and that's what inspired this.
So glad to hear it. All right.
And next year, I just want to ask if Cassie, I assume Cassie Rice is listening, the Quincy Jones behind Pod Jam.
Well done.
Can I have it be my memorial tribute next year? Like Pete, it was yours the inaugural year, but can everybody like say great things about me next year if we have a follow-up?
I think you have to make your fall from the corporate world a lot more public.
Oh.
So that they
and you know what? I'm the boy who cried public fall. Like every other week I'm saying I'm quitting. I hate comedy. I'm done. Everything sucks. And they've become numb. And now it's just a personality quirk as opposed to a crisis.
Yeah, no, I think my story, what's appealing is a lot of people saw themselves in me and they were rooting for me. So I lost my dream gig, but I rebuilt stronger and better and rose from the ashes. And that's a story people can get behind. And I continue obviously to do the work that they appreciate and they all influence so much. And so if you can model that.
Okay. Maybe we could do it in Phoenix and it could be like the Pete Dominic Phoenix rising from the ashes.
I'll go anywhere now. All right, bud. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Got it. Great.